Professor Cuthbert walked into the large classroom with his 4 arms full of data tablets and holographic projectors. The room was packed with students from 12 different worlds. Their various shapes and sizes filled every seat in the curved rows that faced down toward his teaching platform. The blue-skinned Zephyr students sat in one section, their large eyes blinking slowly as they prepared their note-taking devices. The rock-like Morgan students had claimed the back rows, where the seats were reinforced to hold their heavy bodies. Near the front, the delicate Phaler students floated slightly above their chairs, their translucent wings making soft humming sounds. Cuthbert loved teaching this class. Advanced xenobiology was his favorite subject, and today he would cover the most interesting topic of all. He activated the holographic display, and a 3-dimensional image appeared above his head. Students, today we will study the most famous myth in our galaxy, he announced, his voice carrying easily through the room's sound system. We will examine the legend of the creatures called humans. A few students chittered with amusement. The Zephyr exchange student Veltar raised one of her 6 arms. Professor, are we really spending time on fairy tales? Cuthbert smiled, showing his rows of small teeth. Ah, but these are not ordinary fairy tales, Veltar. These stories have been told for over 3,000 years. They appear in the histories of dozens of worlds. Something this persistent deserves our attention. He gestured to the hologram, which now showed a bipedal creature with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head covered in fur. According to legend, humans came from a world called Earth in the Sol system. This world was supposedly so dangerous that it earned the classification of Death World. The room fell quiet. Death worlds were real, and they were avoided by all intelligent species. These were planets where the environment was so hostile that nothing should be able to survive there. The stories claim that humans could run for hours without stopping. Cuthbert continued. They say humans could survive in environments that would kill most of us within minutes. They could eat foods that were poisonous to other species. They could heal from injuries that would be fatal to any normal creature. A Morgan student named Lixia spoke up, her voice rumbling like distant thunder. Professor, surely no species could have such abilities. The biological laws make this impossible. Exactly correct, Lixia, Cuthbert replied. Let me show you why these stories cannot be true. The hologram changed to show a detailed anatomical diagram. Look at this supposed human body structure. They have only 2 legs, yet the legends claim they could run faster than creatures with 4 or 6 legs. Their muscle density appears normal, yet they supposedly had strength far beyond what their size would suggest. He pointed to the creature's head. This brain case is relatively small compared to their body size. Yet the stories claim they were master strategists and problem solvers. They supposedly created technology that could travel between stars. The students began to murmur among themselves. The impossibilities were becoming clear. But wait, there is more, Cuthbert said, enjoying their reaction. The most ridiculous part of the human myth is their supposed social behavior. The stories claim that humans would form emotional bonds with other species. Not just peaceful coexistence, but actual friendship and loyalty. A Phaler student made a sound like tinkling bells, which was their equivalent of laughter. Professor, that makes no sense. Why would any species waste energy caring for creatures that cannot benefit them? The myths become even stranger, Cuthbert continued. Humans supposedly formed these bonds with their own predators. They would take dangerous creatures into their homes and treat them like family members. They called these adopted predators pets and would risk their own lives to protect them. Now the entire class was chittering and buzzing with amusement. The idea was completely absurd from a biological standpoint. Let me show you the most impossible claim of all, Cuthbert said, activating a new holographic display. The legends say that when humans faced impossible situations, they became more determined, not less. Most species have the sensible fight or flight response. When faced with overwhelming danger, they either attack or run away. But humans supposedly had a third response. He paused for dramatic effect. They would refuse to give up, even when facing certain death, even when victory was impossible. Humans would continue fighting. They would throw themselves into hopeless battles to protect others. They would sacrifice themselves for strangers. The classroom fell completely silent. This behavior was so far outside normal biological patterns that it seemed like fantasy. The stories claim that humans had a saying, Kethvar continued. They would say humanity first, or never leave anyone behind. They supposedly believed that the needs of others were more important than their own survival. Veltar raised her arm again. Professor, if such creatures existed, they would have died out quickly. Natural selection would eliminate such wasteful behavior. Precisely, Kethvar agreed. This is why we know these stories are myths. No species could survive with such inefficient traits. The galaxy operates on logical principles. The strong survive, the weak perish, and everyone looks out for themselves first. He began to pace in front of the hologram, his forearms moving expressively. So where did these stories come from? Most xenobiologists believe they were created during the Terran Wars, 3,000 years ago. Some unknown species needed to create a common enemy to unite the galaxy. They invented the perfect boogeyman. The hologram changed to show ancient battle scenes. The name Terran comes from Terra, which was supposedly another name for Earth. The stories claim that humans fought in these wars, but we have no physical evidence of their existence. No bones, no technology, no ruins of their civilization. What we do have, Kethvar said, is pure propaganda. The humans were described as unstoppable warriors who never surrendered. They were said to be so fierce that entire fleets would retreat rather than face them. They were the perfect enemy to scare people into cooperation. A student near the back raised a tentacle. Professor, if humans never existed, why do the stories persist? Why do we still tell these tales? Kethvar nodded approvingly. An excellent question. The human myth persists because it serves a psychological function. When we face difficult challenges, we tell ourselves stories about creatures who never gave up. When we feel afraid, we imagine beings who faced their fears with courage. The human myth gives us something to aspire to, even though it is impossible. He gestured to the hologram one final time. So remember, students, as you study xenobiology, always question the impossible. Just because a story is popular does not make it true. Just because we want something to exist does not mean it does. The class was taking notes furiously now, their various appendages moving across the recording devices. Kethvar felt satisfied with the lesson. He had once again demonstrated the importance of scientific skepticism over wishful thinking. As he prepared to assign their homework, the classroom's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke through the speakers, clear and authoritative. Attention all faculty and students. The first group of exchange students from the Sol system has arrived and will be joining classes tomorrow. Please make our new arrivals feel welcome. The announcement ended, and the classroom fell into stunned silence. Kethvar felt a strange chill run through his body. Sol system. The mythical home of the impossible humans. It had to be a coincidence. The universe was vast, and many star systems had similar names. There was no way that the Sol system from the legends was real. But as he dismissed his students and watched them file out of the classroom, Kethvar could not shake the feeling that his next lecture might be very different from this one. Professor Kethvar arrived at his classroom early the next morning, his 4 arms carrying the usual collection of teaching materials. He had spent most of the night thinking about the announcement regarding Sol System exchange students. Logic told him it was just a coincidence, but something in his gut felt different as he entered the classroom. He stopped so suddenly that his data tablets nearly scattered across the floor. 3 creatures sat in the front row, and they looked exactly like the theoretical reconstructions he had shown in yesterday's lecture. The creatures were bipedal, standing about average height for most galactic species. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and heads covered with varying amounts of fur. Their skin was a pale pinkish color, and their eyes were smaller than most species, but seemed to track movement with remarkable precision. The tallest of the 3 stood up when Kethver entered. The creature's mouth curved upward in what appeared to be a friendly expression. "Professor Kethver, I'm Jake Miller, and these are my colleagues Lisa Brown and Tony Garcia. We're the new xenobiology students from Earth." Kethver's breathing apparatus made a small wheezing sound. Earth, the mythical death world. He stared at the 3 beings who should not exist, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Lissa, a creature with long yellow fur on her head, also smiled at him. "We're really excited to be here. Your university has an amazing reputation throughout the Sol system." Tony, who had darker skin and shorter fur, nodded enthusiastically. "Our professors back home said you were the best xenobiologist in this sector. They told us we'd learn things here that we could never learn on Earth." Kethver opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Behind him, his regular students were beginning to file into the classroom. He heard their usual chittering and buzzing conversations suddenly stop as they noticed the 3 newcomers. "Is everything okay, Professor?" Jake asked, his head tilting slightly to one side. "You look like you've seen a ghost." The professor forced himself to move, walking slowly to his teaching platform. His students took their usual seats, but he could feel their eyes constantly moving between him and the 3 humans. The atmosphere in the room was tense with curiosity and something that might have been fear. "Class," Kethver began, his voice somewhat shaky. "We have 3 new students joining us today. They are exchange students from the Sol system." Veltar raised one of her 6 arms. "Professor, yesterday you said the Sol system was mythical." Jake looked confused. "Mythical? Sol system is real. It's where we come from. Earth is the 3rd planet from our sun." The classroom fell completely silent. Even the usual background sounds of various species, breathing and movement seemed to pause. Kethver decided to proceed with his planned lecture, hoping that normal routine would help him make sense of the situation. "Today we will discuss adaptive radiation in extreme environments," he announced, activating his holographic display. The hologram showed various hostile planetary conditions. When a species faces environmental challenges, they must adapt or perish. The more extreme the environment, the more dramatic the adaptations required. He pointed to images of creatures that lived in high radiation zones. For example, no known species can survive in areas where radiation levels exceed 200 rads per hour. The cellular damage is simply too severe. Lisa raised her hand. "Professor, what about the Chernobyl exclusion zone? I grew up about 50 miles from there, and plenty of people still live in the area." Kethver stared at her. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" "Chernobyl. It's a place on Earth where there was a nuclear accident. The radiation levels are still pretty high, but life goes on. My grandmother lived there her whole life, and she was fine." The professor's data tablet slipped from his grasp and clattered to the floor. Nuclear accident. High radiation. And she had lived nearby without any apparent harm. He moved to the next part of his lecture, showing images of creatures adapted for extreme physical activity. The biological limits of endurance are well established. Most species can maintain strenuous activity for approximately 20 minutes before dangerous exhaustion sets in. Tony chuckled. 20 minutes? That's barely a warm-up. I run marathons on weekends. That's about 4 hours of continuous running. Several students made sounds of disbelief. 4 hours of running was beyond the capabilities of any known species. You must be mistaken, Kethver said carefully. Perhaps you mean 4 minutes? No, 4 hours, Tony confirmed. Actually, some humans can run for much longer. There are ultramarathons that last for days. People run across entire deserts just for fun. Jake nodded. My sister is into those extreme races. She once ran for 36 hours straight across a mountain range. She said it was relaxing. The professor felt his worldview beginning to crumble. He moved quickly to the next topic, hoping to find some area where these creatures showed normal limitations. Let's discuss dietary restrictions, he said, showing images of various galactic foods. Most species have very specific nutritional requirements. Foods that are safe for one species are often toxic to another. He pointed to an image of a vegan crystal fruit. This fruit, for example, contains compounds that cause severe digestive distress in most species. It's considered mildly poisonous. Lisa looked interested. It's pretty. What does it taste like? You cannot eat it, Kethver said quickly. It would make you very sick. Can I try a small piece? Lisa asked. I have a strong stomach. Against his better judgment, Kethver retrieved a small sample of the fruit from his specimen collection. Lisa bit into it and chewed thoughtfully. It's pretty good, she said. Kind of tangy. Could use some salt, though? The classroom erupted in amazed chittering. Veltar was making rapid notes on her tablet. Lixia was staring at Lisa with what looked like awe. Let me try the next one, Jake said, pointing to a Rigelian moss cake that was known to be mildly toxic to most species. Absolutely not, Kethver protested, but Jake had already taken a bite. Not bad, Jake said. Tastes kind of like seaweed. Are there seconds? Tony was examining the display of foods with interest. This is great. We've been eating the same cafeteria. Food for weeks. It's nice to have some variety. Kethver sat down heavily in his chair. Everything he thought he knew about biology was being challenged by these three creatures, who acted as if the impossible was perfectly normal. Professor, Veltar said quietly, are these really humans? The creatures from the myths? Kethvar looked at Jake, Lisa, and Tony, who were now sharing samples of various foods with nearby students and discussing the flavors with enthusiasm. I don't know, he admitted. I honestly don't know what they are. Lisa overheard him and looked confused. We're humans from Earth. Is that unusual here? According to our professor, Lixia said in her rumbling voice, humans are supposed to be mythical creatures. Tony laughed. Mythical? That's funny. We're pretty ordinary back home. Nothing special about us. Jake nodded. Yeah, we're just regular people. We came here to learn about alien biology because it's fascinating. Kethver stared at them. Regular people. Nothing special. These creatures who casually ate poison and talked about running for hours were calling themselves Ordinary Got as the class period ended and students began to file out. Kethver realized that everything he thought he knew about the universe had just been turned upside down. The myths were not myths. The impossible creatures were real, and they thought they were normal dot as Jake, Lisa, and Tony gathered their belongings. Jake approached the professor's desk. Professor, I hope we didn't disrupt your class too much. We're still getting used to galactic customs. Kethver looked up at the human's friendly face. Jake, can I ask you something? Your people? Do you really run for hours without stopping? Jake shrugged. Some do. I'm not much of a runner myself. I prefer hiking. Last month, I walked for 3 days straight across the Rocky Mountains. It was beautiful. 3 days. Kethver watched the humans leave the classroom, chatting cheerfully with some of the other students about their weekend plans. He had spent years teaching about the impossibility of the human myth. Now the myth was sitting in his front row, asking for seconds of poisonous food and talking about weekend hiking trips that would kill most galactic species. Tomorrow, he realized he would need to completely rewrite his lecture notes. Professor Kethver spent the entire night pacing around his office, his forearms gesturing wildly as he tried to make sense of what he had witnessed. The three humans had casually defied every law of biology he knew. By morning, his scientific curiosity had overwhelmed his confusion. He contacted the university's medical center and arranged for what he carefully described as routine biological assessments for exchange students. The real purpose was to test these impossible creatures and document their abilities. Jake, Lisa, and Tony arrived at the medical center that afternoon, looking relaxed and cheerful. They had no idea that they were about to become the subjects of the most important xenobiology study in galactic history. "This is pretty standard stuff," Kethver explained, trying to keep his voice casual. "We just need to establish some baseline measurements for your species." Dr. Queen Ara, the head of the medical center, had agreed to help with the tests. She was a tall, thin creature with purple skin and large, intelligent eyes. Like Kethver, she was struggling to believe what she was seeing. "We'll start with some basic physical assessments," Dr. Kinara said, leading them into a room filled with monitoring equipment. "Just some simple exercises to test your endurance and strength." The first test was designed to measure sustained physical activity. The galactic standard was well established. Most species could maintain moderate exercise for about 20 minutes before dangerous exhaustion set in. Anything beyond that risked serious injury or death. Jake, Lisa, and Tony were connected to various monitoring devices that would track their heart rate, breathing, muscle activity, and other biological functions. The equipment was the most advanced in the galaxy, capable of detecting the smallest changes in biological processes. "We'd like you to walk on these treadmills at a comfortable pace," Dr. Kinara explained. "Just let us know when you start to feel tired." The three humans stepped onto the treadmills and began walking at a moderate pace. The monitoring equipment immediately began recording their biological functions. After 20 minutes, the expected time limit, the humans showed no signs of fatigue. Their heart rates had increased slightly, but remained well within normal ranges. Their breathing was steady and controlled. "How are you feeling?" Kethver asked. "Pretty good," Jake replied. "This is a nice warm-up. When do we get to the actual exercise?" 30 minutes passed. The humans continued walking, now chatting casually about their families back on Earth. Lisa was telling Tony about her younger brother's baseball games. Jake was describing his mother's garden. "This is really relaxing," Lisa commented. "It's like taking a peaceful stroll through the park." Dr. Kinara stared at her monitoring equipment. Not only were the humans not showing signs of fatigue, but their bodies were actually becoming more efficient. Their heart rates were stabilizing. Their breathing was becoming deeper and more regular. 1 hour passed. The humans were still walking and talking, showing no signs of distress. The monitoring equipment confirmed what the doctors were seeing. These creatures were not just surviving the exercise, they were thriving. "Are you sure you're not feeling tired?" Dr. Kunara asked, checking her equipment again. "Not really," Tony said. "I usually run for about an hour every morning before breakfast. This is actually easier than my normal routine." Jake nodded. "Yeah, this is pretty gentle. My grandmother walks faster than this, and she's 87 years old." The doctors exchanged glances. An 87-year-old human who walked faster than their current pace? That was impossible by any known biological standard. After 90 minutes, Kethver called an end to the first test. The humans stepped off the treadmills, still looking fresh and energetic. "That was fun," Lisa said. "What's next?" The second test examined their dietary habits. The doctors presented them with a variety of foods from different worlds, including some that were known to be toxic to most species. "Please try these foods and tell us how they taste," Dr. Quinara said. "Stop immediately if you feel any discomfort." The humans approached the food samples with enthusiasm. They tried fruits that should have caused severe stomach pain, vegetables that contained mild toxins, and spices that were known to be dangerous to most species. "This one is spicy," Tony said, trying a Rigelian pepper that was considered extremely hot, "but it's good. It reminds me of habaneros from back home." "What are habaneros?" Cathver asked. "They're peppers that are really hot," Tony explained. "We use them in cooking. This one is maybe half as hot as a good habanero." "Half as hot?" The Rigelian pepper was considered one of the most intense flavors in the galaxy, and this human was saying it was mild compared to food from his home world. Lisa tried as home world vegan crystal fruit that was technically poisonous. "This is pretty good, but it could use some seasoning. Do you have any hot sauce?" "Hot sauce?" Dr. Kunara asked. "It's a sauce made from hot peppers and vinegar," Lisa explained. "We put it on lots of food to make it taste better." The doctors realized that not only could these humans eat foods that would hospitalize most species, but they actually preferred their food to be more dangerous. Not less. Jake was examining a piece of Morgan rock fungus that was known to be difficult to digest. "This is interesting. It's really chewy, kind of like beef jerky." "What is beef jerky?" Cathver asked, though he was beginning to suspect he did not want to know. "It's dried meat from cows," Jake said. "We take the meat and dry it out so it lasts longer. It's really tough, and you have to chew it for a long time." The doctors stared at him. These humans deliberately made their food harder to eat as a preservation method. The third test was psychological. The humans were placed in a stress simulation chamber designed to trigger the fight or flight response. Most species would either attack the perceived threat or try to escape from it. The simulation showed a large, dangerous predator approaching the humans. The creature was designed to be as frightening as possible, with sharp teeth, claws, and aggressive behavior. Instead of running away or preparing to fight, the humans immediately began discussing the predator with interest and concern. "Oh, look at that," Lisa said. "It looks hungry." "Do you think it's lost?" "Poor thing," Jake agreed. "It seems agitated." "Maybe it's scared." Tony was studying the simulated predator carefully. "I think it might be injured. See how it's favoring its left side? It might be in pain." The doctors watched in amazement as the humans showed no fear response whatsoever. Instead, they were displaying what appeared to be empathy and concern for the creature that was supposed to terrorize them. "Should we try to help it?" Lisa asked. "Maybe we could share our lunch." "I'm thinking we could build it a better habitat," Jake said. "This environment looks kind of sterile. It probably needs more natural space." Dr. Kunyara ended the simulation and stared at the readouts. The human stress levels had actually decreased during the test. Instead of becoming more afraid, they had become calmer and more focused. "That was interesting," Tony said. "What kind of creature was that? I've never seen anything like it." "It was designed to be frightening," Cathver said carefully. "Frightening?" Lisa looked confused. "It just seemed sad, like it needed help." After the tests were complete, the doctors met privately to discuss their findings. The results were beyond anything they had expected. "Their endurance capabilities are impossible," Dr. Quinara said, reviewing the data. "They showed no signs of fatigue after 90 minutes of sustained activity. Their bodies actually became more efficient during the exercise. Their dietary range is equally impossible," Cathver added. "They can consume foods that would poison most species, and they prefer their food to be more challenging, not less." But the psychological results are the most disturbing, Dr. Quinara continued. When faced with a dangerous predator, they showed no fear response. Instead, they displayed protective instincts toward the threat. Kethver nodded slowly. They wanted to help it, to feed it, to build it a better home. What kind of species evolves to help their predators? Dr. Quinara asked. A species that has no natural predators, Kethver replied quietly, because they are the predators. The two doctors sat in silence, contemplating the implications of what they had discovered. The humans were not just impossible. They were potentially the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they had no idea how dangerous they were not as they were discussing their findings. Jake knocked on the door of the medical center. "Hi, Professor Kethvar," he said cheerfully. "We just wanted to thank you for the tests today. That was really interesting." "Lisa wanted me to ask if you need any help with your research," Tony added. "We're happy to volunteer for more tests, if it would be useful." "And I brought you some cookies," Lisa said, holding up a container. "I made them in the dormitory kitchen. They're chocolate chip. That's a traditional recipe from Earth." The doctor stared at the three humans, who were offering to help with research that was designed to study them, and bringing them food as a thank you gift. "That's very kind of you," Kethver managed to say. "No problem," Jake said. "We're really excited to be here. This is going to be a great semester." As the humans left, Dr. Quinara turned to Kethver. "They're not just dangerous. They're dangerous. And they're nice." Kethver nodded, accepting the container of cookies. "That," he said quietly, "might be the most terrifying combination in the universe." Word about the impossible students spread through the university like wildfire. By the next morning, Professor Kethver found his classroom packed with faculty members who had come to observe the humans. Department heads, senior researchers, and even the Chancellor herself had squeezed into the back rows. Jake, Lisa, and Tony seemed completely unaware of the attention they were attracting. They sat in their usual front row seats, chatting quietly about their weekend plans and comparing notes from their other classes. "I really like the quantum physics class," Lisa was saying. Professor Velineth explained how faster-than-light travel works. It's completely different from Earth's theories. "The history class is fascinating, too," Jake added. "Did you know there have been 3 major galactic wars in the past 5,000 years? Earth missed all of them because we hadn't developed space travel yet." Chancellor Morden, an imposing figure with silver skin and 6 arms, leaned forward to listen. The humans were discussing galactic history as if it were an interesting academic subject, not realizing that their very existence challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew. After class, Chancellor Morden called an emergency faculty meeting. The largest conference room in the university was filled with professors, researchers, and department heads, all eager to discuss the mysterious students. "Colleagues, Chancellor," Morden began, her voice carrying easily through the room. "We are faced with a situation that challenges our fundamental understanding of biology. Professor Kethver, please share your findings." Kethver stood and activated the room's holographic display. The test results from the medical center appeared as 3-dimensional charts and graphs. "The humans demonstrate abilities that violate several established laws of xenobiology," he began. "Their endurance capabilities exceed anything we have documented. They maintained physical activity for 90 minutes without showing signs of fatigue." Murmurs of disbelief filled the room. Several professors checked their data tablets to confirm the standard endurance limits for known species. "Their dietary range is equally remarkable," Kethver continued. "They can consume foods that contain toxins harmful to most galactic species. More significantly, they prefer their food to be more challenging, not less. They actually seek out foods that are difficult to eat or digest." Dr. Velineth, the quantum physics professor, raised one of her tentacles. "Professor, Could these be artificial beings? Perhaps they are biological weapons created by some unknown species? Cuthbert shook his head. Their biology is too complex and elegant for artificial creation. Every system in their bodies works together perfectly. They are clearly the product of natural evolution. But evolution toward what end? Asked Dr. Mortain from the history department. What kind of environment would produce such creatures? That brings me to the most disturbing aspect of our findings, Kethva said, changing the holographic display. Their psychological profile shows a complete absence of normal fear responses. When presented with simulated predators, they displayed protective instincts toward the threat. The room fell silent. This behavior was so far outside normal biological patterns that it seemed impossible. They wanted to help the predator, Dr. Kinara added, standing to support Keithver's presentation. They showed concern for its welfare and immediately began planning ways to improve its living conditions. That's not a survival trait, Chancellor Morden said slowly. That's the behavior of a species that has never needed to fear predators. Because they are the predators, Dr. Veleneth whispered. Chancellor Morden made a decision. We need to investigate their origin world. Dr. Mortain, please access the Galactic database and find everything we can about this Earth they claim to come from. Dr. Mortain's 6 fingers moved rapidly across his data terminal. Within minutes, he had located the Sol system in the galactic navigation charts. Found it, he announced. Sol system, outer rim of the galaxy. Third planet from the sun is listed as. Oh. His voice trailed off as he read the information on his screen. His skin color shifted from its normal blue to a pale white. What is it? Chancellor Morden demanded. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, Dr. Mortain said quietly. It's marked as a void at all costs in the Galactic Travel Database. The room erupted in shocked voices. Class 12 death worlds were the most dangerous planetary environments known. They were places where even the most heavily protected exploration teams could not survive. Read us the environmental data. Chancellor Morden ordered. Dr. Mortain cleared his throat and began reading from his screen. Gravity, 1.0 standard, which is considered crushing for most species. Atmosphere, 21% oxygen, which is highly corrosive. Weather systems, extreme and violent, including massive storm formations and temperature fluctuations. He continued reading, his voice becoming more strained with each detail. Surface water covers 71% of the planet and is heavily contaminated with sodium chloride, making it undrinkable. The planet experiences regular seismic activity, volcanic eruptions, and asteroid impacts. But that's not the worst part, he added, his voice barely above a whisper. The entire planet is covered with aggressive life forms. Every ecological niche is filled with creatures that prey on each other. The evaluation team reported that they could not find a single safe location on the entire planet. The faculty sat in stunned silence, trying to process this information. The humans came from a world so dangerous that it was officially classified as unsurvivable. How, Dr. Kunara asked, did any species evolve on such a world? By becoming more dangerous than their environment, Kethver answered quietly. Chancellor Morden stood up, her 6 arms moving in agitation. Dr. Mortain, what else does the database say about Earth? Dr. Mortain scrolled through more data. The evaluation was conducted about 500 years ago. The team recommended that the planet be quarantined indefinitely. They noted signs of intelligent life, but concluded that any species capable of surviving on Earth would be too dangerous to contact. Signs of intelligent life, Dr. Veleneth repeated. The humans were already there 500 years ago, and they've had 500 more years to develop, Chancellor Morden realized. If they were dangerous enough to warrant quarantine, then what are they like now? Kethver thought about Jake, Lisa, and Tony. who had spent the afternoon helping other students with their homework and sharing pictures of their pets from home. "Chancellor," he said carefully, "I don't think they realize how dangerous they are." "What do you mean?" "They think they're normal. They have no awareness that their abilities are exceptional." When Jake mentioned his grandmother walking faster, "Been our exercise equipment," he said it casually, as if it were unremarkable. Dr. Quinara nodded. "Lisa brought us cookies as a thank you gift. Tony offered to help with our research. They're not acting like dangerous predators. They're acting like friendly students." "Which makes them even more dangerous," Chancellor Morden said grimly. "A predator that doesn't know it's a predator is unpredictable." Dr. Mortain was still reading from the database. "There's more information here." The evaluation team noted that Earth's life forms show unusual cooperation between species. They observed predators working together with their prey in complex social structures. That explains their pack-bonding behavior, Kethver realized. On most worlds, predators compete with each other. On Earth, they learn to cooperate. The database also mentions something called domestication, Dr. Mortain continued. Apparently, Earth species have the ability to form permanent partnerships with other species, even former predators or prey. Chancellor Morden sat down heavily. So they don't just cooperate with their own kind. They form alliances with other species and turn them into partners. That's what they're doing here, Dr. Veleneth observed. They're forming friendships with our students. They're domesticating us. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just studying at their university. They were unconsciously recruiting allies and building social networks. "There's one more thing," Dr. Mortain said, his voice very quiet. "The database mentions that Earth shows signs of rapid technological development." The evaluation team noted primitive tool use and basic agriculture. But that was 500 years ago. If they've been developing technology for 500 years, Dr. Kunara said slowly, and they're already capable of interstellar travel, they could be the most advanced species in the galaxy, Chancellor Morden finished. Cathvar thought about the humans' casual attitude toward galactic technology. They had seemed impressed, but not overwhelmed by faster-than-light travel. They treated it as an interesting academic subject, not a miraculous achievement. "I think they are advanced," he said, "but they're not showing off. They're here to learn, not to demonstrate their superiority." "Or they're gathering intelligence," Dr. Veleneth suggested darkly. "No," Kepfer said firmly. "I've watched them interact with our students. They're genuinely curious about other species. They ask questions because they want to understand, not because they're spying." Chancellor Morden made another decision. "We need to observe them more closely. I want detailed reports on their behavior, their interactions with other students, and any technology they might be using." Over the next few days, faculty members took turns observing the humans in Vario. 3 months had passed since the humans first walked into Professor Kethver's classroom. The university had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. Professor Kethver stood in front of his teaching platform, looking out at a classroom that was now packed beyond capacity. Students from every department had enrolled in his restructured course, which was now called Extreme Environment Adaptation, the Sol System Model. Jake, Lisa, and Tony still sat in the front row, but they were no longer the strangest thing in the classroom. The strangest thing was how normal they had become. "Class," Kethve began, "today we conclude our study of the most remarkable species in our galaxy. Not because they are the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest, but because they represent something unique in our understanding of evolution." He gestured to the 3 humans, who waved cheerfully at their classmates. "The humans have taught use that survival is not just about adapting to your environment. Sometimes survival means changing your environment to suit your needs. The holographic display showed images of Earth, but these were not the terrifying Death World statistics from the Galactic database. These were pictures that the humans had shared: cities with green parks, families gathering for meals, children playing in safe playgrounds. Earth is indeed a Class 12 Death World, Kethver continued. But the humans did not simply survive on Earth. They made Earth livable. Veltar raised one of her 6 arms. Professor, how did they change an entire planet? Jake answered before Kethver could respond. We worked together. When the environment was too dangerous, we built shelters. When food was scarce, we learned to grow our own. When predators threatened us, we made them into partners. It took thousands of years, Lisa added. Our ancestors didn't change the planet overnight. They changed it one generation at a time. One problem at a time. Tony nodded. And we're still working on it. Earth isn't perfect yet. We still have problems to solve, things to improve. The class listened with fascination. Over the past 3 months, the humans had become the most popular students on campus, not because they were feared, but because they were genuinely helpful and kind. They had started a study group that met every evening in the library. Students from all 12 species attended, and somehow the humans had created an environment where everyone felt comfortable asking questions and sharing ideas. They had volunteered at the campus medical center, where their natural empathy and problem-solving abilities made them excellent assistants. Dr. Koinara had mentioned that patient recovery times had improved significantly since the humans started helping. Most remarkably, they had convinced the cafeteria staff to let them cook, something called pizza, for special events. The strange food had become incredibly popular, and now every campus gathering featured human cuisine alongside traditional galactic dishes. The humans have taught us something important about cooperation, Kethvar continued. Most species compete for resources. Humans share resources and create more. He pointed to a hologram showing the campus food court, where students from different species sat together at tables, sharing meals and conversation. Before the humans arrived, each species sat separately. We were polite to each other, but we did not socialize. Now look at our campus. Species barriers had disappeared. Lixia, the Morgan student, spoke up in her rumbling voice. Professor, the humans did not force us to change. They simply showed us that cooperation was possible. That's the key to understanding human behavior, Kethver agreed. They do not dominate through force. They lead through example. Chancellor Morden had joined the class today, sitting in the back row and observing the discussion. She had been watching the humans carefully for months, and her initial fears had transformed into deep respect. The humans represent a new model of evolution, Kethver said. Instead of becoming more specialized for their environment, they became more adaptable. Instead of competing with other species, they learned to cooperate with them. Jake raised his hand. Professor, can I say something? Of course. Jake stood up and faced the class. I know you all think humans are special somehow, but we really aren't. Everything we do, every other species can do too. We just had to learn because our planet was so difficult. But that's what makes you remarkable, Veltar said. You learned to survive the impossible. Lisa shook her head. We learned to survive together. No human could survive alone on Earth. We only made it because we helped each other. And now you help everyone, Lixia observed. You have extended your cooperation beyond your own species. Tony looked thoughtful. I guess that's just natural. For us, when we see someone who needs help, we want to help them. It doesn't matter what species they are. Chancellor Morden stood up. May I address the class, Professor? Kethver nodded, and the Chancellor moved to the front of the classroom. Students, 3 months ago we thought humans were mythical creatures. When we discovered they were real, We feared they might be dangerous. We were wrong about both assumptions. She looked directly at Jake, Lisa, and Tony. Humans are not myths, and they are not monsters. They are teachers. You have taught us that strength is not about being powerful enough to destroy your enemies, she continued. True strength is about being generous enough to turn your enemies into friends. The Chancellor gestured to the mixed groups of students throughout the classroom. You have shown us that the galaxy does not have to be a place where species compete for survival. It can be a place where species work together to thrive. Jake looked embarrassed by the attention. Chancellor, we're really just regular students. We came here to learn about alien biology. And you have, Chancellor Morden replied. But you have also taught us about human biology. You have shown us what a species looks like when it evolves, not just to survive, but to help others survive. As well, the semester was ending, and the 3 humans were preparing to return to Earth for a visit. The entire university had gathered in the main plaza to see them off. Students, faculty, and staff from every species were there, many carrying small gifts and tokens of friendship. Professor Kethfor approached Jake as the transport prepared for departure. Jake, I must ask you something that has been bothering me for months. What's that, Professor? Your people have capabilities that seem impossible to the rest of the galaxy. Do you not realize how extraordinary you are? Jake considered this question seriously, as he always did. Then he smiled the same easy smile he had shown on his first day in class. Professor, everybody's extraordinary in their own way. Veltar can process mathematical concepts that would take me hours to understand. Lixia can lift objects that would crush me. Dr. Kanara can see electromagnetic wavelengths that I can't even imagine. He paused, looking around at the gathered crowd of friends from dozens of different worlds. We humans just had to get good at not giving up. Our planet taught us that the only real failure is not trying again. Lisa joined the conversation. And we learned that everything is easier when you have friends to help you. Tony nodded. That's why we're so excited to come back next semester. We've learned so much here, and we've made so many friends. As their transport departed, Professor Kethfor stood with his colleagues and watched it disappear into the starfield. The humans were going home, but they would return. And when they did, they would bring more of their kind. Kethfor, Chancellor, Morden said quietly, what do you think will happen when more humans arrive? Kethfor thought about the changes he had seen in just 3 months. The barriers between species had crumbled. Students who had never spoken to each other were now close friends. The entire campus had become a more cooperative, more peaceful place. I think, he said slowly, that the galaxy is about to become a much better place to live. Dr. Kunara joined them, carrying a data tablet with the final reports on human biology. I've been thinking about our initial assessment. We concluded that humans were dangerous because they had no natural predators. That was correct, Kethfor agreed. But we misunderstood what that meant, Dr. Kunara continued. We thought it meant they were the ultimate predators. But actually, it means they evolved beyond the predator-prey relationship entirely. Chancellor. Morden nodded slowly. They don't survive by defeating their enemies. They survive by making everyone their allies. Professor Kethfor looked up at the stars where the human transport had disappeared. Somewhere out there was Earth, the impossible death world that had produced the most remarkable species the galaxy had ever encountered. The myths were wrong, he said quietly. Humans are not monsters or impossibilities. They are simply what happens when a species chooses to define itself, not by what it cannot do, but by what it refuses to stop trying to do. As the crowd dispersed and the campus settled into its evening routine, Kethvar realized that his life's work had been transformed. He was no longer a professor of theoretical xenobiology. He was now a professor of applied cooperation, teaching. the galaxy how to learn from the species that had turned a death world into a home. The humans had kept their promise. They had returned to Earth, but they had also left something behind, the knowledge that the galaxy's future could be built on friendship rather than fear. And next semester, when they returned with more of their kind, that future would begin in earnest.